William L. White writes in Slaying the Dragon, The History of Addiction Treatment and Recovery in America, 19th century temperance leaders in America consistently advocated the religious experience as an antidote to alcoholism. The reform institutions that evolved throughout the 19th century, the almshouse, the insane asylum, the orphanage, the prisons, the reformatories, and the inebriate asylums often similarly recognize the potential role of religion in personal reformation. Evolving out of and distancing themselves from religious practices, people in 12-step recovery and its literature encourage participants to free themselves from obsessive and compulsive behavior by pursuing a spiritual awakening as opposed to a religious conversion. A spiritual awakening can be characterized as a feeling of openness, of expansiveness, happiness, joy, and freedom. One of the benefits of practicing 12-step recovery is that it makes complicated ideas accessible to everyday people. In that way, 12-step recovery is practical. In fact, the literature says recovery works through understanding and application. And if it's not practical, it's not spiritual. You don't need a religious conversion to recover, and you don't have to wait to grow spiritually. No person, group, or organization holds the exclusive rights to spiritual progress. Something essential for a spiritual awakening is that you have to be awake, aware, conscious. One obstacle to greater awareness is the tendency to consider only the upside of awareness. But as one may desire all the pleasurable aspects of spiritual awareness, there is also a downside. My awareness of life is inversely proportional to my awareness of death, and therein lies the obstacle. I'm not advocating an escape from pain and suffering, but an engagement with them. You cannot expand your awareness of good without also expanding an awareness of evil. I'm not talking about a trip to the spiritual suburbs. It's not all unicorns and rainbows. Don't confuse spiritual awakening with denial. I'm talking about having the courage to be receptive to all of it, both good and evil. It requires skill and great courage to grow spiritually. A genuine awakening includes becoming conscious of the immense suffering both within you and in the world. What about a spiritual growth born out of an awareness of both our conscious and unconscious bias toward negativity, pessimism, and fear? It's that level of awareness that tunes us into the fact that even in the midst of injustice and catastrophe, there is great hope and beauty. A spiritual awakening is marked by the feeling of not just being grateful, but being grateful to be grateful. Unlimited gratitude, radical gratitude, gratitude that animates life. Fear makes us weary of manipulation and loss. Some people are reluctant to acknowledge gratitude out of a fear that it will make them vulnerable to having their feelings used against them in intimate relationships. Allow me to point out that you're already vulnerable to manipulation and loss. You were born that way. That's part of the trauma we as human beings have to cope with during our lifetime. Some people have difficulty accessing gratitude because they fail to notice what they have to be grateful for. Distracted by thoughts and feelings, they're unable to reduce the white noise in their heads and open themselves to the experience of gratitude. You can't be grateful for anything you don't notice. One of the main benefits of any spiritual practice is to cultivate the ability to feel gratitude. Fear and withdrawal do not always protect you from reality. There's a going on that must be practiced in order to create meaning in one's life. Happiness is a byproduct of that meaning. Spiritual growth requires the ability to tolerate and hold two equal and opposite ideas in your mind at the same time. It's the awareness of the finite nature of life that creates the kind of spiritual intelligence I'm talking about. It's willingness to face reality that allows us to wring all we can from the time we have left. It can create a sense of urgency that compels us to make the most with our lives. It's not possible for me to experience a spiritual awakening until I can embrace my predicament in the present moment. All situations hold the seeds for gratitude within them, which must be cultivated by the person who is conscious of their existence. That, I believe, is the purpose of meditation and recovery, to make oneself aware of what one has to be grateful for. That's a spiritual awakening.